What's up, guys? Welcome to the Succession companion podcast presented by The Disorderly. Head over to thedisorderly.com for the best in sports and entertainment. My name is Nick Rizner. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Rizner, NickRizner. DMs are open. You can find us on Twitter at Disorderly Media and Facebook at Disorderly ENT. So, this is a special double episode because I was moving last week. I ended up missing one, so I wanted to touch on episode 4, get into episode 5. So first, we'll start with episode 4, obviously. Season 1, episode 4, Sad Sack Wasp Trap. All right, so let me just start by saying this. I'm not ready to take back all my criticism of Succession. Last week, I voiced my concerns about the show, I guess. I really wasn't feeling it. I will say it's starting to take a turn for the better. It may actually be good, too. I don't know. The jury's still out on that one. But let's get to a quick plot recap, and we'll talk about all this later. So Logan's starting to get better, but he's definitely still recovering from his stroke. He's not 100%. Nevertheless, he returns to the office and starts to seize power back from his son, Kendall. Shiv is sort of torn between politics and the family business when her candidate gets blackmailed. That's all sort of peripheral, but the episode focuses around this big dinner party being thrown together by the oldest son, Connor Roy. Connor's trying to, claim a little bit of power of his own by taking over the charity. So this dinner party is very important to him. We also find out that Royco is covering up this huge database of all these crimes that are committed on their line of cruise ships, and Tom is stuck covering that up. The only person he tells is Greg. Tom wants to hold an internal press conference and ultimately wanted to go public with the information, but someone puts a stop to it. We find out eventually at the end of the episode that it was Greg, actually, who tipped off Jerry about the press conference, and she sort of encourages Greg to keep talking. I think that was the exact line, keep talking. The episode closes with Logan stealing the show and making a speech of his own because he's paranoid about Kendall surprising him with a retirement announcement. This is due to him getting tipped off from Connor. A little ambiguous whether he's going to do it or not. Like, Connor wasn't lying, but at the same time, it was left ambiguous what Kendall was going to say. But he says that he was just going to make a little joke about how Logan would never leave. So I don't know. It seems like whatever. But it emphasizes the inherent mistrust between father and son. So I'll say this. I like where things are going with Greg. That's how I felt, removed from this episode. But given the fact that this is a double episode, we'll dive right into Season 1, Episode 5, entitled, I Went to Market. So this one kicks off with Greg picking up his grandpa, who is Logan's brother, to bring him to Thanksgiving. Logan, we find out, is planning on buying a whole bunch of local TV stations, like this whole package of local TV. The kids disagree. This is coupled with signs of regression. Like right after he holds this meeting, Logan's pouring his coffee. He doesn't stop. He spills it. It's actually very interesting because it reminds me of, if you guys watch Westworld, the James Delos scene. So it's very similar. Obviously, he was going through his own regression, but I don't want to get into all that. Kendall gets his ego stroked by some young employees, which is interesting because we see basically constant criticism. So to see the young employees, whether they're either sucking up to him or actually are impressed with what he does, that was a pretty interesting dichotomy as well. Now, moving on to all those documents that were covered up from the line of crimes committed on this cruise line. So basically what happens was there was a policy in place that if any serious crimes, rape, murder, anything like that, assault, was committed on the cruise ship, they would go to, not to the United States, but to, a local seaport where they had quote-unquote friendly authorities. Basically, they're covering all this stuff up. And it was so bad that I think they said one of the guys used it basically as his own personal, pleasure cruise, and he would have the dancers or whoever give him blowjobs for contract extensions and whatever. So it was like really bad. There's all this really bad information there. There's a whole paper trail and whatever. What Tom has to do now is try to destroy it. Instead of going public, because he got talked out of doing that, now he has to try to destroy all that information. The only way to do it is to have a sort of fall guy, someone who you can trust, but, could potentially, if this all blows up, his name will be pinned to it. And of course, he chooses Greg. So he sends Greg to go shred all these important documents. Greg's name's the one in the ledger or whatever. So if they ever get in trouble for doing this, it'll come back on Greg. While all this is happening, Kendall begins maneuvering to basically overthrow his father. So he's going to do a vote of no confidence. You need the majority of the board members to vote on an overthrow. So that's all happening. Between Tom and Shiv, there's a prenub sort of causing a rift between the two of them. He's paranoid that she's cheating on him now. That their whole relationship starts to break down because of this prenub. And we discover that Connor's girlfriend is a whore. Now, I don't know if they implied that before. I kind of thought they were just ashamed of her because she was so much younger. Like, they were just, ashamed. But in this one, we find out that she literally is a paid whore. And it's pretty clear that Connor's got some really deep-rooted mental and emotional hangups. Because he literally, he says he'll take care of her financially. First of all, just having a long-term prostitute girlfriend, bring her to Thanksgiving and all that, that's weird too. But the fact that he wants to like go steady with her and make it exclusive and whatever, I feel like he has some delusions about, you know, what he means to her and all this stuff. It shows some deep-rooted mental illness, honestly. So that's an interesting little wrinkle that I think Connor was kind of like, he seemed actually more like one of the more sane, you know, quote-unquote normal people as far as the kids go. And that's a pretty big red flag right there. We also got our first glimpse at the relationship between Logan and his brother, and it's not good. And the whole Thanksgiving disaster ends with, first of all, the discovery that Marcy's son has been appointed to head of animation. This is something the kids did not know about. It's another thing that kind of shows, you know, where Logan's loyalties lie. It seems like he's really much more interested in Marcy than his own family, his own kids. So that's, you know, appointing him head of animation could be that. It could be part of this questionable decision-making process that's associated with the deterioration of his health and all this stuff. And, you know, there's more of an indication to that, too, because it ends with him literally taking a can and, you know, snapping, not really realizing where he is, and bashing Kendall's son in the head. Now, to be fair, hot take, the kid kind of deserved to get hit. I mean, he wasn't showing up to dinner. He was late to come in for dinner. He was very rude to his grandpa during that game. He kept saying, you lose, like right in his face. I didn't like that at all. So, I don't know. But it actually was a pretty entertaining scene. So that's it. More or less the 2 episodes recapped. We're back to that same problem of not really knowing, I don't know how to cover this other than just recapping it and giving my thoughts, I guess, because there aren't these big twists, there aren't these big reveals like we had in the Westworld podcast. But nevertheless, we will revisit my favorite topic in this show. Greg is fantastic, hilarious, easily my favorite character. The first thing I really liked was the dynamic between Greg and Tom. And that's as good as ever, especially with them in cahoots now, doing like this huge, like very important blackmail cover-up mission. And like it's those 2 buffoons just like masterminding the whole thing. It's very funny. I really enjoy it. I'm also really enjoying getting to see more of the family dynamic, getting to learn more about the relationship between, you know, the 3 main kids, the sort of a strange relationship with Connor. You get to see it. Whenever you see these big family gatherings, you really get to see more of that dynamic, and it's actually really well written, really well thought out. I think the acting I never had a problem with. It was just, I didn't really know the depth of the show. I didn't know where it could go. Obviously, there's a number of threads that can pull on here, but take a show like Mad Men, for example. There's constantly little things going on, but it's more of a period piece. This obviously is current day, but I think it's almost that. It's just a look at this family, look at the different family dynamics when there's businesses involved and money and everyone's, you know, egos and people sort of going for positions of power and whatever. And I feel like that's enough. I was worried that it wouldn't be, but now that I'm kind of more in the swing of things, now that I'm enjoying the dynamics of the characters, I'm interested in the threads they're going with and the plots they're going, you know, the subplots they're really focusing on right now. I'm interested in all that. So if they can keep my interest in that, then they'll basically hold my interest for the show. You know what I mean? Like, I think that should be good. To be fair, it's not Westworld. I think Sharp Objects has a lot more potential as well. So there's certain things. There's going to be your cornerstone shows, and then there's going to be kind of filler shows. And if that ends up being what this is, I think that's okay. But this, so far, I would say this is more in that category of something like, I'll watch it, I'll throw it on in the background. Obviously, I'm doing this podcast, but if I wasn't doing this podcast, I'd probably still watch it, but like slowly get through it. And that's my personal preference too. Like I actually feel the same way about Handmaid's Tale, interestingly enough, which is a, you know, award show critical darling. And to me, that's kind of a background show. Like, I get to it when I get to it, but it's not like I'm rushing, oh wait, a new episode came out today, I'm going to run over there and watch it. That's not really the case. But we'll be back with our regularly scheduled episode releases. It should be midweek every week, you know, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it may be. And we're going to start doing that. I might do a Sharp Objects podcast as well. Similar to Succession, it's like I'm going to have to watch the first episode, see if, you know, if it's worth doing the podcast. You guys will know if I do it, it'll come out, you know, following the episode. So keep an eye out for that. I'm still doing the baseball post, keep an eye out for that. And we'll keep these short. There's going to be a little quick hits to go with the sort of density of the show. Obviously, a denser show will command longer episodes to explain what's going on in that show. And that's that. It's 1,000 degrees in my apartment. It's been like the hottest July ever, so I'll wrap it up there. Turn on the AC again. That's the worst part about recording. You got to shut the AC off. I'm dying here. So I hope you guys enjoy your weekend, and I will see you next week for the episode 6 companion podcast. All right, guys. I'm out of here. Peace.